Hi, my name is Jay Abraham Johnson. Most people call me Abe for short. I have been a freelance programmer for over 10 plus years. I've always been consistently staying busy with like side projects. I got started, my church needed a website. And ever since I got that 250 for just, putting the pieces together, I've been sold ever since. Okay. Before this, I was an entrepreneur. I co-founded a company called Hyperfocus. We are focused on building small, like I said, software, like helping startups or small businesses create apps and websites that helps them solve their business needs. I came to Nebula to expand my modern technology skill set and expand my soft skills. I picked up a lot of things by myself, just watching YouTube videos and that type of stuff. But I came to Nebula to really learn like what the modern technologies are, with JavaScript and React, but also using Amazon cloud computing services, and also learn about collaboration in a team environment. Like most of my cohort, most of my classmates have said, like that moment of just like euphoria when you solve a problem, you just get addicted to that. So I had to come and get as much of that as I could. Okay, so now I am going to go over my overview of contributions I made to the Unlock the Box project. Okay, the first thing I think I contributed was a leadership / mentorship type role. Like I said, since I've been doing this for a while, that's something I do. Teacher login validation through AWS Amplify and our RDS database. I helped set up our backend server architecture. And then finally, I set up our front-end socket routing and handling. Leadership and mentorship, it was a natural evolution during our project. Like I said, I had some skills coming in from beforehand. And a classmate, Ramsey, asked out for a leader. And I felt like, it was something inevitable that, like, even though I was contributing code, it was more... I figured I could have more impact if I stepped up in this role as well. So what started out as me just simply helping out my classmates solve the more challenging problems eventually led to me becoming the person who understands how the app functions front to back, which made me the go-to guy to, in terms of like helping, anyone solve a problem, or when it came time to deploy the app, all of those things I really, I worked on. Okay, so login and validation. So the first thing I did when I was creating the app is I made the teacher login view here. Okay. And for the first step of that is I had to set up and configure AWS Amplify, which is a user management system hosted by Amazon. It's in the cloud, and it is a service that provides, like I said, user management. So we don't have to worry about encrypting passwords or validating anything. Okay. We send out a request to our from our backend to the Amplify, and it does all the validation for us. Okay. Then I created this front end view that captures and submits the Amplify data. Okay. Then once a user is validated through Amplify, then we create or retrieve a teacher in our PSQL RDS, which is a Postgres relational database system. And so this makes it so that we can have persistent data in our database and our backend so that teachers can sign in and everything's validated. And then once that whole process is done, then I pass that object loaded through the database through the rest of the app. So that way you can stay logged in, a teacher can stay logged in and do the tasks that they need to do. Okay. The next thing I contributed to this project was creating the backend server architecture. I created it, our whole class really created an Amazon EC2 server for our app to communicate for our front end, with our front end and our database. Okay. Then the next thing I did was created a class for a box, team, teacher, student, and created relationships between them. Okay. A teacher creates a box. A box has multiple teams. A team has multiple students, and then they need to be able to interconnect and talk and submit events between them. Then I created the socket handlers for the validated users. So only, if a teacher's logged in, then they can create a box. Only if a student is already inside of a box can they submit an answer, those types of things. Then I created some basic API routes for our database and helped teammates like Ramsey, Sam, and Shamika, create more complex routes for our database. And then finally, the last thing I contributed towards this project was front-end socket routing. I oversaw, the first thing I actually had to do was differentiate the difference between what we wanted persistent and what we wanted temporarily stored in our database, okay? Because every box is a temporary session, you know? Like people will be joining in and out of that box session, but ultimately what it comes down to is certain things like when you create a lock or a teacher who's logged in, those things need to stay in the database long term. But everything else is transmitted through sockets to be a temporary session, okay? And so I oversaw every page on the front end socket connectivity, which ultimately means I was in charge of maintaining synchronicity with all users in the box, which means firing and listening to events whenever a teacher creates a box, a user joins a box, a user submits an answer, whenever a team submits a correct answer, whenever a user disconnects, et cetera, et cetera. There are dozens of socket events that are going on, and instead of talking about them, I'm just going to show you really quickly on the website. So when you log in, right, when you click the instructor to log in, this is the view that I said I built. You could, register now, you could forget your password, but we're just going to log in already just so I can show you the socket events, okay? So anytime you submit to click a lock, right, to check it off, you are a teacher with a box created. And when I click these buttons, this is submitting something from our front end to our back end to say, hey, I need a box with these locks selected, right? Anytime I set the timer, right, this updates all the people in the room, right, with the updated timer settings. Same with the set number of groups, all right? Because currently, before there is a group, before I add students to a group, right, I could try to join this box, but it would be invalidated. So now I'm gonna switch. So let's say I was a person who didn't have a link. Invalid box ID, that comes from the socket from the server, from our backend. And I was just in charge of making sure that all of these things are allowed so that actually when you join, you can actually, everybody is in the same page, basically. That is what I was in charge of. That's why when you enter in the right answer, this team is locked as 25. I can see this first lock is unlocked. And same with this teacher page, all right? He can also see that that is the current status of the game, okay? Or the box. Yeah, there are dozens of socket events, but I feel, oops, I wanted to spare you guys the, yeah. Sorry, does anyone have any questions?
Nice job, Abe, very good. With all your experience, Abe, what was probably the most challenging part of this assignment?
Early on, it was just, getting used to collaboration. I've done a lot of solo work, so just understanding the flow of GitHub, making sure we're all on the same page with the Figma and that type of stuff. So the skills that Nebula provided, like the tools that they provided for us very much helped with that aspect. But I think the thing in the last hurdle for our project was deployment, and that proved to be a very interesting problem just because there were so many small problems that were like as the app you develop becomes more and more specific, the problems you start to run into are more like rare, if you get what I'm saying. So we were running into issues where we had a certificate for our front end, but we needed one for our back end, and we wanted to use the same one, but it was different, and we had to like generate our own keys. It took a lot of days of multiple days of hard work, and I really want to thank Lori and Nick, both Lori's son Thomas and Nick, for really sticking through and helping us get this deployed. I really, that's one thing I really can't stress enough, is that this was built in 3 weeks by a bunch of people who were, intro level like software engineers, and I'm very proud of what we were able to accomplish here.
Abe, else would you like to see this do? What, I mean, if you continue to work on it, how would you like to enhance it?
So the main thing for me is I hold a very high standard for myself in terms of like I want everything to work, no glitches, no bugs. Like I want you know, like the animations to be smooth. I just want like right now this is what we call MVP, minimum viable product. Like it works, all the parts are connected and everything, but I would like it going forward to be more flush, like fleshed out, more validation, like and more interactivity, so the user can understand it more clearly what the experience is, if you get what I'm saying.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Abe, I have a question. Is this the first time that you've taken a leadership position on a project? If so, can you talk about, how that was? And if it is not the first time, then can you talk about the differences or similarities to the last time?
Yeah, sure. So like I said, with my company Hyperfocus, I definitely do some leadership things, but we're all like attacked in a different way. So this was definitely a and still like even when I say leadership, like everyone came to all of my classmates came prepared to like I didn't have to say you do this task, right? We had a big bulletin board of tasks and everyone, went home and tried to work on it and worked on it until they were confused and tried to get my attention or get Nick's attention. So like it's not like I hard delegated anything per se, but just in terms of like overall cohesion and stuff like that, this is my first like really at bat, with a bunch of people like this. Yeah, so it's been interesting. I learned a lot. But what was your question specifically? Did I answer it?
Yeah, you answered. It was kind of comparing your previous leadership roles to what you did.
Okay.
And now there's a few questions in the chat, so I'll ask these. So Bonnie's got her question. How much code did you, have to do to get this to happen, to pull it together?
Ooh. Like I like Ramsey's code where it's just a lot or all of the code really, where I didn't really track. I stopped tracking at some point, but I know I wrote over 1,500 lines of code just for like between front end sockets and the back end and the classes interrelated between those. But that doesn't even go into how many times we've revised the component over, right? And then that doesn't even go into how many times we write a command into the terminal just to get pull, get push, right? That type of stuff. All that takes time. So it was a lengthy, like it was a hard 3 weeks, you know what I'm saying? But I'm very grateful. Like it feels so good always at the end of the other side when you like everybody said before, when you just like keep working on a product and making minor tweaks and then you like get all the pieces interconnected. I guarantee you there is no feeling better in life than that.
Okay. The next one from Bonnie. When you say freelancer, what does that mean?
That means.
And sorry, there's probably a follow-up to this. Are you self-taught or do you have a computer science degree? I feel like you could answer all those together.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm mostly self-taught. I'm a person who always seeks knowledge. Like this bootcamp is just, one of a step of many like places I'm gonna go to continue to seek for knowledge. But yeah, I took some intro level CS courses in community college, never finished. But I've always continued, like I said during my intro, I've always had a project that I was working on, or like people have seeked me out to do websites for them or work on collaborative projects. So I've just been grateful to continue to just be working and be useful to people, Yeah.
Okay, cool. And now from Kathy McHugh, we have, do you want to continue being a freelancer or are you interested in a permanent position?
I have a lot of different, that's the thing that's hardest for me is I'm very like, good at like short things, but like long term, I'm not exactly sure where I fall in line of like the company or the entrepreneur role. I'm just gonna continue moving forward in the direction until something presents itself.
And what do you have a specific field that you would like to stay in? Technology, like in IT, right? But is there within IT, is there something that you're more curious about?
So I've done a lot of different things in technology. The one thing that I think has escaped me, and I've definitely learned through this boot camp that I'm really into, is class relationships, you know? So like I said, when I made the bots and the teachers interact with each other, that was very interesting. When I made, we made a game project earlier in the cohort, and I made a like an animal simulation type game where, you know, big animal eats little animal, and I just made it like its own ecosystem. And that really unlocked the understanding for me that I love like models and simulations and that type of stuff. So I would really love to work on like, I would love an excuse to work with some machine learning concepts. That would be my next, like, if I have nothing else going for me and I just wanted to start a new project, that'd probably be the next one.
Awesome. Couple more. So the collaboration taught you to put the pieces together, which is how you would be working realistically as a lead developer or as a lead designer. Yeah,
Yes.
okay, it's a bit of a statement. Yeah. A question is, if a good position was offered to you, are you open?
Of course. Of course.
I think, can you speak to that as a student? You know, what do you think everybody's mentality, all the classmates' mentality is around that?
Yeah, I feel like everybody's pretty open to that. But
yeah,
I think everybody also in my class is like, we're all very much focused on like trying to make the world better at the same time too. Like we can't just go to a place just for the money. It's also got to be doing something that is worth solving as well. Yeah.
Cool.
Any final questions?
Yeah, so I have one for you, Abe. First, you know, congrats on taking on that leadership role, and you did do a great job. And I heard it loud and clear from all your peers. So congratulations. And hopefully you'll take those learning experiences forward in future leadership opportunities for yourself. But how, from the AWS piece, you know, one of the things I noticed with you is that you really gravitated well to the concept of learning those skill sets. How do you think that has changed your mindset about your future, and what would you say you took away from learning AWS?
I always thought it was something out of range. I really thought that was reserved for like the Google level, you know, developers, is cloud computing and this type of stuff. It just seems so foreign and mystified. I remember coming in, like you were trying to teach us on Mondays, and I couldn't wrap my brain around what an EC2 was and what's CloudFront again. What are my notes? It was menacing, but I really, like I said, like the workplace simulation environment really is a trial by fire, if you get what I'm saying. And I think the discomfort that I was feeling was a sign that I was starting to soak in some information. Yes. Do you want me to talk more about Amazon, or did that?
Yeah, I wanted to hear from you, you know, how you felt initially, because I think a lot of students feel that way. And I think your perception is spot on, that, you know, people think about Amazon and think, oh, wow, I'll never be able to do that, right?
Yeah.
And we know it's very attainable, and you know, students in our past cohorts are graduating, getting their certifications, and they're you know, able to differentiate themselves, right? Because that certification is a huge game changer for you getting a job, right? And so the fact that you were able to really use it in this project specifically to learn how to use it as a platform was I think really important.
Absolutely. No, I wholeheartedly agree. I think the vision was like, I love it. I love the whole process.
Yeah, and thanks for acknowledging on Thomas. You know, he would and his we always rely on him when we hit a wall with something, because he's a great resource for us. So it was good to bring him in when needed.
Absolutely. Any final questions?
Yes, I have a few questions for you.
Just try. There's one from the chat, so maybe just ask one, Will, and then we'll ask the one from chat, and then
Yeah, I agree.
So, what do you learn about yourself that you didn't know you had in the past, or something new? And what was your most favorite part in the project, and your most skillful part about you that you can use in the project?
Oh, okay. So I know what my favorite part was easily just waking up, and like, I don't like mornings. I don't like, you know, I don't like schedules, that type of stuff. But waking up with my classmates, we're all working towards the same thing. I don't think there's, yeah, like I said, that's like as good as life gets, I think. You know, we're clearly making progress towards a thing, and it's like improving every day at a ridiculous rate. It's such a good feeling. One thing I definitely learned from the cohort is they have this it's like a skill set like evaluation type thing called Career Leader, and it showed me it just asked me questions that I never even dared to ask myself, I guess, like in terms of like, would I be comfortable leading? And I never really realized, like, you know, it was something maybe I've done before, just out of reluctance, out of necessity, but it's something I think I'm gonna continue to work towards and really just continue expanding and building and just solving problems. That's my favorite.
Awesome. And I think you really covered the question that was in the chat as well, which was your overall favorite part about the course?
Perfect.
I
So,
think you covered it.
And last question.
all right, well,
So, what made you to step up to be a team leader? And who or what did inspires you to become a software engineer? What inspires you or who did?
So I'm gonna start with the second question again, just because I can. When I was a kid, I was always interested in like games, like most kids growing up, you know, in the 90s. I feel like Pokemon and that type of stuff. But I was always really curious on just how it worked, and I always felt like I could do it a little better. So, you know, maybe that's confidence or whatever, you know. But like, so that just pursuit always it started something for sure, and that's what got me down the path. And the reason why, like I said, I took the team leadership is just because, like I said, I was very busy solving issues, you know, like just coding and stuff. But I realized like I could contribute significantly more if I took a step back from how much I was contributing and like focused on making sure everybody's contributions were solid and like, you know, and on the same page. You know, like I said, great team of like individuals. Like I really didn't actually have to do too much, you know. It's like just by a role by like name really, but yeah. So that is all right. So thank you for the questions, everybody. I want to
Okay, we
take
have
time.
one more, Abe. We have
Oh.
one more question in the chat. We're gonna go, and then we'll move on. Okay.
Okay.
I'll read it off. Sure. So, how is this program different than any other experience that you've participated in your learning journey?
I think what it comes down to is the intimacy definitely adds a lot. Like when, you know, in terms of like, I got to know all my instructors very well. You know, there was office hours with Tefe where I always knew I could go to, and it would very much help. Like he helped me get along whenever I was stuck on a project. Nick was also very strong. Manami helped me like when I was getting started. You know, so those types of things, and then also like I just think the curriculum is pretty strong. Like I think there is a lot of elements that came together, you know, in terms of there is just it's like the best way to describe it is I could trust how I was being guided down the river, so I never had to think about that, so I could just focus on like building the raft, if you get what I'm saying. So I think that was the major difference between this and any other learning experiment, like when I was in college, other boot camps I've done, whatever, you know. So yes. Cool. And that was the final question. I just want to take time to thank, just do a few thanks real fast. Number one is shout out. I want to thank Jesus because, you know, just a lot of things have been made possible by him, and it would feel weird to thank him in any other order. I want to thank my family, especially my mom. She's been my number one supporter, you know, cheerleader. I want to thank Kathy and Bonnie for making a way for me to get here. I want to thank Manami and Tefe for just helping facilitate our growth. I want to thank Lori for orchestrating the whole like operation. You know, it's really I really love the like vision and like everything you're trying to get us to do in terms of like the AWS like training and everything. I think that's so invaluable. And I love that it's like minorities too. That's just so beautiful. I also want to thank Thomas for helping us with deployment, Lori's son, just because I still would be looking at the Vim and like entering in commands. I don't know if we would ever solve that. And then finally, I really want to thank Nick, honestly, because it's rare that you get a programming instructor who's good at people, good at teaching, and good at code. And it's like to have the trifecta of that is amazing, number one. And then number two, like I'm a person who likes to work hard, you know, and Nick, especially like in the deployment and everything, was there longer than me, just trying to make sure that this went through smooth. So I'm just so grateful for that. Yeah. And now I'm going to pass it back to Nick. There you go.